White Sox fans, welcome into the Sox On Tap post-game show. It's Johnny Nani, joined today by Sox Insane. Besnick, hell of a game today. A little bit unconventional, but White Sox come out, series opener, get a win up in Minnesota. How's that make you feel?
That's a great start to the series. I didn't like all the baseball I saw on the field today, but for the most part, these guys came around and got the job done, overcame a rough day by the infield to get a win. It's always great to beat the Minnesota Twins up in Minnesota.
Right, and I think something that you had tweeted out shortly after the game was something that really sticks with me, and that was the White Sox. It's not a common occurrence, but they did enough to overcome their own mistakes, and that's a refreshing sight for me to see.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even the good teams are going to have their bad games, but what separates good and great teams is exactly that they're never out of the game. They've always got a chance because they can overcome an error by a shortstop or a third baseman who doesn't throw to the right base. Whatever that error is, these guys pick up their teammates and help them out and come back with a win.
Right. Yeah. So that's a good sign, especially after kind of seeing a one-sided game yesterday in terms of everything else kind of clicked except for the offense. So they're able to get some timely hitting today. We'll get into all of that, listeners. Make sure you go subscribe on Tap Sportsnet on YouTube. Jump in the comments here. Yeah, just like our boy Sox said. Mike says, crack them, boys, fuck the Twins. We love seeing all of that stuff. Get in those YouTube comments. It's on Tap Sportsnet on YouTube. Give us a follow on social media at Sox On Tap and at On Tap Sportsnet. All right, let's dive into this game. It was Dylan Cease Day for the White Sox. A little bit of an odd line that he finishes with here, Besnick. It's 5 innings, 3 hits, 3 runs allowed, but only one of them earned, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. How was he able to navigate around the defense that was subpar behind him?
I mean, he was able to just make big pitches when he needed to. He didn't have a ton of strikeouts like we've seen in the past, but he got off to a really fast start. He retired the first 5 batters he faced. He struck out the side in the first, and then he started getting into a little trouble when his defense betrayed him. And this game isn't on Cease. His start got cut short because you're making errors in the field and sending more batters to the plate. So you can't expect, as good as he is, you can't expect him to go out there every single day and be perfect. His teammates are going to have to come through and pick him up a little bit. His defense didn't, but they he was able to hold it down and pass it off to the bullpen, who did a great job.
Yeah, right. You're talking about with Cease, he had to go 99 pitches through those 5 innings. So obviously, you'd like, as a trend, you'd like to see White Sox starters be able to ride a little bit deeper into games. But man, what he's able to do with his devastating stuff, and even when it's not completely on, it's still pretty damn unhittable. Is kind of my takeaway whenever I watch him pitch. Always so impressive, and he has grown into a bona fide ace. So let's talk a little bit about some of these issues here in the field, though, behind him that plagued him, Besnick. And we had multiple, our guy Tony likes to call it, little league bullshit. Multiple occurrences. You got run scoring on Alberto's error in the third. You've got the sloppy failed double play in the fourth that opens the door for Twins to strike back after the Sox had taken the lead. You've got Gavin Sheets going Buckner down the line there. What was going on? What was up with the infielders? I know a few backups in there, but man, that's a tough showing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a day like today where you really miss Yoan Moncada's glove, because what he gives you at the plate is you kind of get what you get if you get anything at all, but you always know that he's a stalwart out there at third. So you kind of missed him out there because, he probably makes those plays. But Elvis Andrus giving, his error of the ball that he booted led to the first run there. When you let Nick Gordon get on base, it's just a hit or a walk and a hit, and that guy's going to score if he doesn't even already steal a base. So you can't let guys like that get on the base paths. And that led to that first run. And then you've got the botched double play. I don't know what these guys were thinking or what was going on in that play.
Right, because in that situation, right, runners on first and second, Hanser could have stepped on the bag to start initiating that, to get that lead runner on the force out, and then you still have the force behind him at second base. Instead, he goes, I guess maybe the ball pulling him a little bit towards second base might have been the initiator of that. So he throws there, But on the throw back from Andrews, it was to Alberto, but Tim's kind of caught over there because he doesn't know if he should go behind. And then this leads to, as Jordan Miller says in the comments, Matt Wallner, reckless base running if we're going to take the Pirates mentality here. And he bangs into Tim Anderson, who eventually had to leave the game here. But that was just a mess of a situation. And it's like, I feel like it's just like an early season brain fart. I want to believe that. But with Pedro Griffola, how much he's been hammering home about, the details matter and the fundamentals and all that, I'd like to see this stuff cleaned up sooner rather than later, right?
I agree. The one thing I'll say is the defense has been pretty solid up until this point. We haven't really had any major issues. You're going to have your gaffes here and there. And hell, you're going to have games like this too. But for the most part, I wasn't really too concerned going into this game about the defense. I was thinking earlier today about the fact that, defense has been one of the positives so far for this team. We've seen Luis Robert make incredible plays, Oscar Colas. It's made a difference, but today they just didn't have it.
Right. It's funny how I feel like things just can kind of just snowball. All it takes is one booted ball for it to kind of go out of control. And we saw, you talked about defense being, for the most part, good, and I would agree with that. But Friday, too, you saw a few things get out of whack with walks and whatnot. And then you got throws coming in all over the place, guys missing the ball, and we're getting little league grand slams out there. So I think limiting those, if you can stop, if you say you have a gap, it's going to happen. You're going to boot a ball every once in a while. If everyone can just lock in around, I think that's got to be a point of emphasis for the rest of them. Because I feel like that's happened in the past, too. I mean, we can think back to that doubleheader in Cleveland last year when I know there were multiple things going wrong there, but Tim Anderson just had himself a rough day and it led to sloppy play all over the field. So reeling that in, I think, is important here when we're talking about White Sox. But let's talk positives here, because it wasn't all bad. They still won the baseball game here. They win 4-3, and they do that with some, a bounce back performance from Hanser Alberto. After he boots that ball that leads to the Minnesota run, he goes from GOAT to hero by hitting a 3-run shot. And that was after Yaz had doubled in a run too. But Hanser Alberto with the 3-run shot in the fourth inning there, that was huge.
That was huge. And one of my favorite baseball quotes is from Earl Weaver, and he said, "Winning games comes down to," nobody wants to hear it because it's boring, but winning comes down to fundamentals, good pitching, and the 3-run homer. We didn't have the fundamentals today, but we got the 3-run homer and we got the pitching that was good enough. So we got 2 out of the 3, and that worked out. But yeah, I mean, he's responsible for 3 of our runs and 2 of theirs. So all things considered, it was a positive out of Hanser there in his second start this year. So.
Right. Yeah. I like seeing that, because this is a guy that thought maybe, I think some of the kind of aura around him, right, from spring training and stuff, is okay. Well, he ripped up the Cactus League. Can this carry over? Is this legit, or is this just a bench piece? And he showed today that he can step up in a big situation. So that was big. And man, you talk about the 3-run home run. I know that some people would like the White Sox to start hitting for a little more power. I think they've done it in some spurts, right? You had a multi-home run game down in Houston. They've done it where, over stretches of a couple of days where they string together some home runs, but they've been hitting doubles here. But hitting the 3-run home run, like you said, it matters a lot. But getting guys on base, even though they lost that game Friday, I like that they got guys on base before they hit home runs. And it becomes such a momentum shifter in a game. Because you saw Kenta Maeda doing all his tennis grunting out there. He wasn't too pleased. He wasn't too pleased after Hanser Alberto took him deep into those bleachers in left field.
No, not that was pretty much the day for him. I mean, he was fine overall. And then that one mistake, the slider that he hung right down the middle, he hurt it. It's always great to see White Sox hitters taking advantage, or as you like to say, being opportunistic when you get a hanging breaking ball right down the middle. Nothing drives me nuts more than when a guy swings through it or fouls it off. But this time Alberto got it and he hurt it. And to your point about letting things snowball, what we saw exactly in that doubleheader was a bunch of errors by TA, and it led to a 10-run inning. We lost that game 10-1. Dallas Keuchel pitched. I remember that one vividly. And this time they didn't let it snowball. They didn't let these errors take over the game and, let it get out of reach. They held it down. So that was nice to see for once.
Indeed. And one more note while we're on the offense here, really quick. I think we're going to have to start asking the question: is Yaz hashtag redacted? And we all know that's the B word that we're talking about. But man, taking advantage of the new rules that are, getting some balls through that would not be hits last year on the, extremely overcorrected shift that he was presented with at multiple times. But even then, he's drilling a ball to the gap for a double to bring in runs. And this is consistent. He's been doing it all season so far. I like what I see.
Same. He was my pick to click. I think that counts as
Yeah,
a
you won.
win for the pick to click.
Yeah, because no one had Hanser, so I think you win that.
I think Buzz might have had Hanser actually.
Ooh, did he? Yeah, okay.
But yeah, he might. So he might have taken the dub on that one. But yeah, I mean, and one thing I want to say about Yaz before I forget it is there was a big play in the bottom of the ninth when Raylo was out there, and he called time right before Raylo was about to get a pitch clock violation, and get a ball called against him, and he would have fallen behind in the count. Instead, he shuts the fucking door. But that was key for Yaz to do something like that. We know he brings that to the table, that baseball IQ and the things he can do behind the dish. But when he's also hitting, it's just a massive plus having this guy. Seeing a resurgence from him will take this team a long way, I think. He's just an important cog in that ship, being a left-handed bat and getting on base.
Right, 100%. And I really like that you brought up that instance, because you're right. You've got Raylo, who would have gone down in that count. And you know what? I love the awareness too, because you have mound visits remaining. You still have a disengagement. You're not going to get, you could still call time there. And it seems like a simple thing on the surface, but like you said, say he doesn't do that. We're a little lackadaisical. We're missing those sort of beats there. Then you never know how the next sequence of pitches can play out when you're starting.
Right.
Behind instead of ahead in a counter. Hey, just have an opportunity to clear yourself, because Raylo clearly wasn't ready to throw that pitch there. So great job by Yaz in the heads up department there too, along with swinging the stick. Couple knocks for him today. Obviously the RBI to get us going with our first run on the board. So after that, another positive for today. Bullpen locks it down. You rightfully brought this up. And you said, what are the odds of the White Sox holding this 1-run lead from the 6 on? And I would say not good, but they got it done.
They got it done. My guy Jimmy Lambert, Aaron Bummer, Kendall Graveman, Raylo, that was one hit ball for 4 innings. They didn't have a walk. That was it. I mean, they really shut the door on the Twins, and they got the defense behind them to back it up. They finally sorted it out, and the rest of the game they played pretty cleanly. So that was big. And this is their second straight outing. In the Kopech game, obviously we lost 1-0, and Kopech only gave up the only run. Bullpen had a clean game in that game. So, seeing the bullpen come through like that gets me pretty excited. I mean, that is something that is supposed to have been the strength of this team for many years. And when you see it actually producing consistent results, that to me is a reason to get excited about a win like this.
100%. With those guys, Jimmy Lambert just does his job. I like that. That's the shtick, the kind of what we've been pumping out, and he just does it. The Lambo gets it done, man. He might have a few walks every once in a while, but shit. Overall today, one scoreless inning for him, 2 Ks. Kendall Graveman doing his job to bridge the gap there, and then Aaron Bummer. We talk about the kind of sort of. It kind of puts us on pins and needles. I think that's a good term for it. But the stuff is devastating. He's got that wipeout slider. And unfortunately, when the command's not there, you see guys getting on via walks or hit by pitch today. But you have a guy that comes in and picks him up. And that was huge, because Reynaldo Lopez, your baby boy, has a ball sack made of steel, Besnick.
He gets it from his dad. So, I mean, he just, like I said earlier, he just came in and slammed the fucking door on those Minnesota bastards. It was great to see him get pumped up. He got the strikeout to end the 8th, strand a runner, the only runner that got on base during the bullpen's 4 scoreless innings. Then he comes out, strikes out 2 of 3 in the 9th, and he's throwing 100-mile-per-hour fastballs up there. You love to see this. Hopefully this is a confidence builder for him that he can take going forward. Because I mean, let's remember that was his second career save today. He's got 2 saves in his career. So you love it. You love it. It's growth. It's very positive for someone to pick up the slack for Liam.
Indeed, yeah, it's huge. And we talk about picking each other up within the game and what the White Sox need to do to play as a team and be foundationally strong. Well, you got to remember guys that aren't even there, and I think that's a good point bringing up Liam, because all of this crew together being a little overworked right now. Despite that, they are banding together to help pick up Liam Hendricks, which hopefully, we're hoping to get him back. Hope in May, possibly June. Looks a little bit more realistic, I'd say. But hey, that's big from a team morale standpoint, I think. And then just last thing on Raylo, man, you said the gas, throwing 100 there to close. I love being able to say gas. He gone. That's a Sox winner, baby. That is a great sequence of events as a White Sox fan.
It was beautiful. And like Hawk always says, good pitching, good hitting, it's good fielding, it's contagious. Like you said, it snowballs, and now a couple other guys are making errors. But the bullpen's pitching well, and hopefully these guys are feeding off each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So that about wraps it up. That was the story of today's game. Once again, White Sox win 4-3, first meeting of the year, first meeting of this 3-game series with the Minnesota Twins. They'll be right back at it tomorrow. Finally, a normal start time. I know Steve kind of bandied about the idiocy of today's matinee start time for whatever reason, even though it was the home opener. Fairly normal start time, 6:40 Central for Tuesday's matchup. It'll feature Lance Lynn on the hill for our Sox and Pablo Lopez, who has been hot to start the year, on the mound for the Twins. What are we expecting from this matchup, Besnick?
Well, Lopez has been really good. He's got an ERA under 1 right now, 0.73, in fact. He has faced some weaker lineups against the Marlins and against the Royals. So, maybe if we come out, we'll see what TA's status is, what his health is. Hopefully he can be in the lineup. Hopefully Moncada can be in the lineup and put something a little more formidable out there than what he's been used to facing. And then we've got our guy, the big bastard. Rough outing last time around against the Giants, but I have faith and trust in this guy as much as anybody outside of Dylan Cease. So I'm looking forward to hopefully what I'm thinking is going to be another close game. Based on what we saw today and who may or may not be in the lineup. So I'm ready. Hopefully this can build some momentum from the win today.
Right. Yeah, we'll get to those question marks that you had just brought up there in a second. I think that's a good rundown of Tuesday's matchup here. So before we jump into the kind of injury report at the end here, let's get picks to click in for this Tuesday matchup. Who you riding with?
All right, I'm going to go with Luis Robert. Hopefully Steve can roll some R's wherever he is or on this podcast. He was a struggle today at the plate, hitless, I believe. So hopefully he can turn it around after his day off. Maybe he needed to knock some of the rust off. So I'm going to go with Luis Robert Jr.
Yeah, right. It's kind of tough to pick around with some of those top guys there, possibly out. So I'll be safe, and I'm going to go with a guy that I believe should be in. You'd gotten an off day, not just a couple of days ago. Andrew Benintendi. Been a while since I picked him. You got the lefty on the righty matchup there, so I'll go with Benny. Hey, start living up to that contract, right? That's what I want to see.
Yes,
a little bit of pop, a little less ground ball. That's what I'm looking for.
Same, 100%.
Yeah. All right, we got to get to it. Unfortunately, White Sox have a little bit of an injury report building here, and let's start with at the top with Joe Kelly, and possibly the most White Sox injury. Once again, I know he's been on the shelf multiple times, but he did this groin strain while running out during that, benches clearing brawl that obviously didn't really escalate to much, but that happened on Sunday. So he's on the IL retroactive there. You had a little rundown there because you wrote about it over at ontapsports.com. Just give us the rundown of Joe Kelly's injury history really quick.
So Rick Hahn signs him to a 2-year deal with a 3-year option. He's making $9 million a year. He comes to the team coming off of a nerve issue with his shoulder, and you knew he wasn't going to be ready to start the year. Oh, on top of that, there was a clause in his contract, actually not a clause, a handshake agreement, that he could not pitch on back-to-back days until July last year. And even before he got to July, in May, he had to go on the IL with a bicep strain. He's left a game because of lightheadedness. He's left a game because he's tweaked a groin. A hamstring. Now he's doing the same thing again with the groin. And this time it wasn't even a baseball injury. He's just running onto the field for everybody's supposed to do it. Pedro Grifol had a quote about it saying everybody should run on the field. He's like, it's a lot worse from a team perspective if there are guys that don't run out there. So Joe, next time you run on the field, maybe take it easy. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, I mean, it's IL stint after IL stint with this guy. Hopefully this wasn't a long one. I don't know, because this is looking like this is really bad.
Yeah, so then in that corresponding, you got to go with Keenan Middleton, for recalled from AAA Charlotte, Jonathan Stever outright there. If you want the full rundown of that, go check out Besnick's post over at ontapsportsnet.com. A couple more. We'll go quick on Yoan Moncada. It's day to day. Unfortunately, I think the language felt like the precursor, the dark cloud before a potential IL stint, but we don't know for sure on that. It's day to day as things currently stand right now. And it was back soreness that did nag him a little bit during spring training. That was Grifol's thing. And he said, we're going to take it day to day right now. And the goal is to obviously nip it in the bud before it becomes a longer issue. That's unfortunately, we've had to hear about that with Yoan Moncada multiple times. But the last one we got to get to is Tim Anderson. And Bestick, I think we got to go back to this. Matt Wallner, reckless base running, runs into Tim Anderson. If we're going Pirates logic here, it's all Matt Wallner's fault. He deserves to be called named and stuff like that. Well, guess what? He brushed up against Tim Anderson during that weird not double play that was botched by the White Sox. Tim stayed in the game, but then the knee stiffened up on him. So he's being further evaluated and treated for left knee soreness. We'll see what the extent of that is, but just thoughts on this, because, we didn't have to think about it, right?
Right. I mean, just like you said with Moncada, there's this dark cloud hanging over there. Like, is this going to be an IL stint? And, TA, for as much as we love him, is a tone setter. He usually misses 30, 40 games a year, even in a healthy year. Last year, obviously, he missed half the season. So you hope this isn't the first IL stint, because, you've already got Eloy out and Moncada's questionable. So it's an unfortunate play. It's what happens when you play bad defense. Sometimes, unfortunately, you end up in those weird positions. Hopefully he's back. Hopefully this isn't too long. That's all. That's all.
I have just a little bit more hope there in the fact that he stayed in, and I know that they said it stiffened back up on him again. But if it was really that bad at first, even if it was like a stinger, a knee bruise, something like that, I've seen, I feel like he would have come out right away. And if it was really, really going to be that serious. So honestly, I'm more worried about monitoring Moncada's day-to-day status here, because we all know that can turn into, like I said, possibly an IL stint, or they didn't put him on, but they might as well have when we come and look at it in 10 days. And if he's missed the significant amount of time, we've seen that before, not just with him, with multiple other guys, but that's where we stand on the White Sox injury report. So unfortunately, I got to talk about that stuff too, but end of the day, White Sox win today 4-3. They're back one game under 500. They can win a series against a divisional opponent, secure their first series win of the season on Tuesday. I'm looking forward to it. We've got our picks to click in here. So make sure you follow us on Sox On Tap on Twitter. Drop yours in when we post ours before the game as well. Would love to hear who everyone's riding with. So, Besnick, give me one final thought for today's show. Let's wrap it up and get the hell out of here.
Build on the momentum of this win. I want to hopefully see that this is some type of foundational win for this team to start gelling and playing together. These guys are picking each other up in the game. That is the type of win I want to see. When you are good enough to overcome your mistakes, because everybody's going to make them, but if you can overcome them, that's the difference between being 500 and being in the playoffs. So let's build on this.
Right. I think you covered it perfectly from an on-field standpoint, what they need to do, continue win ball games, continue the good vibes. I loved seeing, even though a couple of guys that had a little bit of adversity around them today, in Hanser Alberto and Elvis Andrus, afterward, they're interviewing Hanser Alberto on the NBC Sports Chicago postgame show. And who is it? Elvis Andrus behind him with the Gatorade jug. Gets him completely doused. I love the reaction. Looked like they were enjoying each other.
I was watching the post game, and Ozzie and Chuck talked about exactly that. And Chuck brought it up, and we know Chuck always brings his foam #1 finger and pom poms to every post game. But he did point out to Ozzie, like, when did we see that happen last year? I don't think we saw that. And Ozzie was like, If no, like I don't remember that happening because they never had anything to celebrate.
Right.
So, I completely agree. Very, very positive vibes going around.
Right. Yeah. That's just want to see more of it. Continue to build on it because guess what? Baseball is fun. It should be a fun game. And when you win, it's a lot more fun. So let's keep building on that. Take out these damn Twinkies on Tuesday. Until next time, White Sox forever.
White Sox forever.